Chapter 5. Legislature. Introduction. You have already studied the importance of elections and the method of election adopted in India. Legislatures are elected by the people and work on behalf of the people. In this chapter, you would study how elected legislatures function and help in maintaining democratic government. You will also learn about the composition and functioning of the parliament and state legislatures in India and their importance in democratic government. After reading this chapter, you would know the importance of the legislature, the functions and powers of the Parliament of India, the lawmaking procedure, how the Parliament controls the executive, and how the Parliament regulates itself. Why do we need a Parliament? Legislature is not merely a lawmaking body. Lawmaking is but one of the functions of the legislature. It is the center of all democratic political processes. It is packed with action, walkouts, protests, demonstrations, unanimity, concern, and cooperation. All these serve very vital purposes. Indeed, a genuine democracy is inconceivable without a representative, efficient, and effective legislature. The legislature also helps people in holding the representatives accountable. This is, indeed, the very basis of representative democracy. Yet in most democracies, legislatures are losing their central place to the executive. In India, too, the cabinet initiates policies, sets the agenda for governance, and carries them through. This has led some critics to remark that the parliament has declined. But even very strong cabinets must retain a majority in the legislature. A strong leader has to face the parliament and answer to its satisfaction. Herein lies the democratic potential of the parliament. It is recognized as one of the most democratic and open forums of debate. On account of its composition, it is the most representative of all organs of government. It is, above all, vested with the power to choose and dismiss the government. Activity. Consider these newspaper reports and then think. What would happen if there were no legislatures? After reading each news report, state how the legislature succeeded or failed in maintaining control over the executive. 28 February 2002, the Union Finance Minister, Jaswant Singh, announced in the Union budget proposal an increase of Rs. 12 in the price of a 50 kg bag of urea and a smaller increase in the price of two other fertilizers, which constituted about a 5% rise in prices. The current urea price of Rs. 4,830 a ton carried a subsidy of as much as 80%. 11 March 2002, the finance minister had to roll back the increases in fertilizer prices under intense opposition pressure. The Hindu, 12 March 2002. 4 June 1998, the Lok Sabha witnessed acrimonious scenes over the hike in urea and petroleum prices. The entire opposition staged a walkout. The issue rocked the House for 2 days, leading to a walkout by the opposition. The finance minister, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, in his budget proposal had proposed a hike of 50 paisa per kilogram of urea to reduce subsidy on it. This forced him to roll back the hike in urea prices. Hindustan Times, 4 and 5 June 1998. 22 February 1983. In a rare move, the Lok Sabha unanimously decided to suspend official business and give precedence to a debate on Assam. Home Minister P.C. Sethai made a statement. I seek the cooperation of all members, whatever their views and policies, in promoting harmony among different communities and groups living in Assam. What is needed now is not acrimony but a healing touch. Hindustan Times, 22 February 1983. 3 March 1985. Congress members voiced protest against atrocities on Harijans in Andhra Pradesh. The Hindu, 3 March 1985. Why do we need two houses of parliament? The term parliament refers to the national legislature. The legislature of the states is described as the state legislature. The parliament in India has two houses. When there are two houses of the legislature, it is called a bicameral legislature. The two houses of the Indian Parliament are the Council of States, or the Rajya Sabha, and the House of the People, or the Lok Sabha. The Constitution has given the states the option of establishing either a unicameral or bicameral legislature. At present, only 6 states have a bicameral legislature. States having a bicameral legislature are given below. I. Andhra Pradesh. Roman 2. Bihar. Roman 3. Karnataka. Roman 4. Maharashtra. V. Telangana. Roman 6. Uttar Pradesh. Countries with a large size and much diversity usually prefer to have two houses of the national legislature to give representation to all sections of society and to all geographical regions or parts of the country. A bicameral legislature has one more advantage. It makes it possible to have every decision reconsidered. Every decision taken by one house goes to the other house for its decision. This means that every bill and policy would be discussed twice. This ensures a double check on every matter. Even if one house takes a decision in haste, that decision will come up for discussion in the other house, making reconsideration possible. An upper house could perform the useful function of being a revising body, and its views may count but not its votes. Those who could not enter into the rough and tumble of active politics could advise the lower house. Purnima Banerjee. Cad Val, IXP 33, 30 July 1949. Rajya Sabha. Each of the two houses of parliament has different bases of representation. The Rajya Sabha represents the states of India. It is an indirectly elected body. Residents of the states elect members to the state legislative assemblies. The elected members of the state legislative assemblies, in turn, elect the members of the Rajya Sabha. We can imagine two different principles of representation in the second chamber. One way is to give equal representation to all parts of the country irrespective of their size or population. We may call this symmetrical representation. On the other hand, parts of the country may be given representation according to their population. Bicameralism in Germany. Germany has a bicameral legislature. The two houses are known as the Federal Assembly, Bundestag, and the Federal Council, Bundesrat. The Assembly is elected by a complex system combining direct and proportional representation for a period of 4 years. The 16 federal states of Germany are represented in the Federal Council. The 69 seats of the Bundesrat are divided among the states on the basis of a range of populations. These members are generally ministers in the state governments and are appointed, not elected, by the governments of the federal states. According to German law, all the members from one state have to vote as a bloc, as per the instructions of the state government. Sometimes, due to coalition governments at the state level, they fail to reach an agreement and may have to abstain. The Bundesrat does not vote on all legislative initiatives, but all policy areas on which the federal states have concurrent powers and are responsible for federal regulations must be passed by it. It can also veto such legislation. This second method means that regions or parts having larger populations would have more representatives in the second chamber than regions having smaller populations. In the USA, every state has equal representation in the Senate. This ensures equality among all the states, but this also means that a small state would have the same representation as a larger state. The system of representation adopted for the Rajya Sabha is different from that in the USA. The number of members to be elected from each state has been fixed by the fourth schedule of the Constitution. What would happen if we were to follow the American system of equal representation in the Rajya Sabha? Uttar Pradesh, with a population of 1,998.12 lakhs, would get seats equal to that of Sikkim, whose population is only 6.1 lakhs. The framers of the Constitution wanted to prevent such a discrepancy. States with larger populations get more representatives than states with smaller populations. Thus, a more populous state like Uttar Pradesh sends 31 members to the Rajya Sabha, while a smaller and less populous state like Sikkim has 1 seat in the Rajya Sabha. Members of the Rajya Sabha are elected for a term of 6 years. They can get re-elected. All members of the Rajya Sabha do not complete their terms at the same time. Every 2 years, 1/3 of the members complete their term, and elections are held for those 1/3 seats only. Thus, the Rajya Sabha is never fully dissolved. Therefore, it is called the Permanent House of Parliament. The advantage of this arrangement is that even when the Lok Sabha is dissolved and elections are yet to take place, The meeting of the Rajya Sabha can be called, and urgent business can be conducted. Apart from the elected members, the Rajya Sabha also has 12 nominated members. The president nominates these members from among persons who have made their mark in the fields of literature, science, art, and social service. Activity: find out the number of representatives elected from different states. Prepare a chart showing the number of representatives and the population of each state according to the 2011 census. Lok Sabha. I don't understand why there is a provision for nominating these sportspersons, artists, and scientists. Whom do they represent? And do they really contribute much to the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha? The Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies are directly elected by the people. For the purpose of elections, the entire country, or the state, in the case of a state legislative assembly, is divided into territorial constituencies of roughly equal population. One representative is elected from each constituency through universal adult suffrage, where the value of every individual's vote is equal. At present, there are 543 constituencies. This number has not changed since the 1971 census. The Lok Sabha is elected for a period of 5 years. This is the maximum term. As discussed in the chapter on the executive, before the completion of 5 years, the Lok Sabha can be dissolved if no party or coalition can form the government, or if the Prime Minister advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha and hold fresh elections. Check your progress. Do you think that the composition of the Rajya Sabha has protected the position of the states of India? Should the indirect election of the Rajya Sabha be replaced by direct elections? What would be its advantages and disadvantages? Since the 1971 census, the number of seats in the Lok Sabha has not increased. Do you think it should be increased? What should be the basis for this? What does the parliament do? What is the function of the legislature? Do both houses of parliament have similar functions? Is there a difference in the powers of the two houses? Apart from lawmaking, the parliament is engaged in many other functions. Let us list the functions of the parliament. Legislative function. The parliament enacts legislation for the country. Despite being the chief lawmaking body, the parliament often merely approves legislation. The actual task of drafting the bill is performed by the bureaucracy under the supervision of the minister concerned. The substance and even the timing of the bill are decided by the cabinet. No major bill is introduced in Parliament without the approval of the cabinet. Members other than ministers can also introduce bills, but these have no chance of being passed without the support of the government. Control of the executive and ensuring its accountability. Perhaps the most vital function of the Parliament is to ensure that the executive does not overstep its authority and remains responsible to the people who have elected it. We shall discuss this function in greater detail later in this chapter. Financial function. Government is about spending a lot of money on various matters. Where does this money come from? Every government raises resources through taxation. However, in a democracy, the legislature controls taxation and the way in which money is used by the government. If the government of India proposes to introduce any new tax, it has to get the approval of the Lok Sabha. The financial powers of the parliament involve granting resources to the government to implement its programs. The government has to give an account to the legislature about the money it has spent and the resources it wishes to raise. The legislature also ensures that the government does not misspend or overspend. This is done through the budget and the annual financial statements. Read a cartoon. 3 April 1955. The parliament is the boss, and the ministers are looking very humble here. That is the effect of the parliament's power to sanction money to different ministries. Representation. Parliament represents the divergent views of members from different regional, social, economic, and religious groups from different parts of the country. Debating function. The parliament is the highest forum for debate in the country. There is no limitation on its power of discussion. Members are free to speak on any matter without fear. This makes it possible for the parliament to analyze any or every issue that faces the nation. These discussions constitute the heart of democratic decision-making. Constituent function. The Parliament has the power to discuss and enact changes to the Constitution. The constituent powers of both houses are similar. All constitutional amendments have to be approved by a special majority in both houses. Electoral functions. The Parliament also performs some electoral functions. It elects the President and the Vice President of India. Judicial functions. The judicial functions of the Parliament include considering proposals for the removal of the President, Vice President, and judges of the High Courts and the Supreme Court. Powers of Rajya Sabha. We discussed above the functions that are performed by the Parliament in general. However, in a bicameral legislature, there is some difference between the powers of the two houses. Look at the charts showing the powers of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Powers of the Lok Sabha. Makes laws on matters included in the Union List and Concurrent List. Can introduce and enact money bills and non-money bills. Approves proposals for taxation, budgets, and annual financial statements. Controls the executive by asking questions, supplementary questions, resolutions and motions, and through a no-confidence motion. Amends the Constitution. Approves the proclamation of emergency. Elects the President and Vice President, and removes judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts. Establishes committees and commissions, and considers their reports. Powers of the Rajya Sabha. Considers and approves non-money bills and suggests amendments to money bills. Approves constitutional amendments. Exercises control over the executive by asking questions and introducing motions and resolutions. Participates in the election and removal of the President, Vice President, and judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts. It alone can initiate the procedure for the removal of the Vice President. Can give the Union Parliament the power to make laws on matters included in the state list. Special powers of Rajya Sabha. So, the Lok Sabha controls the purse, then it must be the more powerful house. As you know, the Rajya Sabha is an institutional mechanism to provide representation to the states. Its purpose is to protect the powers of the states. Therefore, any matter that affects the states must be referred to it for its consent and approval. Thus, if the Union Parliament wishes to remove a matter from the state list, over which only the state legislature can make laws, to either the Union list or the concurrent list in the interest of the nation, the approval of the Rajya Sabha is necessary. This provision adds to the strength of the Rajya Sabha. However, experience shows that the members of the Rajya Sabha represent their parties more than they represent their states. Powers exercised only by the Lok Sabha. There are powers that only the Lok Sabha exercises. The Rajya Sabha cannot initiate, reject, or amend money bills. The Council of Ministers is responsible to the Lok Sabha and not to the Rajya Sabha. Therefore, the Rajya Sabha can criticize the government but cannot remove it. Can you explain why? The Rajya Sabha is elected by the MLAs and not directly by the people. Therefore, the Constitution stopped short of giving certain powers to the Rajya Sabha. In the democratic form adopted by our Constitution, the people are the final authority. By this logic, the representatives directly elected by the people should have the crucial powers of removing a government and controlling the finances. In all other spheres, including the passing of non-money bills, constitutional amendments, impeaching the president, and removing the vice president, the powers of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha are co-equal. How does the parliament make laws? The basic function of any legislature is to make laws for its people. A definite procedure is followed in the process of making laws. Some of the procedures of lawmaking are mentioned in the Constitution, while some have evolved from conventions. Follow a bill through the legislative process, and you will clearly see that the lawmaking process is technical and even tedious. The diagram explains the procedure through which a bill becomes a law in Parliament, following the exact flow shown in the image. People's inputs. Suggestions, opinions, and feedback from the public are received. Committee gives report. A parliamentary committee examines the bill and submits its report. House may or may not accept the report. The House considers the committee's report. It may accept or reject the recommendations. Detailed discussion of bill in House. The bill is debated clause by clause in the House. Bill is accepted or rejected. After discussion, the House votes. The bill is either passed or rejected. Sent to the other House. If passed, the bill is sent to the other House of Parliament. Other House approves or gives recommendations. The second House may approve the bill or suggest amendments, recommendations. Joint session of Parliament, if required. If the two houses disagree, a joint session may be called to resolve the deadlock. President approves or sends back for reconsideration. After Parliament passes the bill, it is sent to the President. The President may give approval or send it back to Parliament for reconsideration, except in the case of money bills. Bill becomes law. Once the President gives assent, the bill becomes law. Additional points shown in the diagram. Bills sent to committee or discussed in the House itself. After the introduction in either House, in case of a non-money bill, the bill may either be referred to a parliamentary committee or be discussed directly in the House. This is the complete sequence represented in the flowchart. A bill is a draft of a proposed law. There can be different types of bills. When a non-minister proposes a bill, it is called a private member's bill. A bill proposed by a minister is described as a government bill. Let us now see the different stages in the life of a bill. The diagram classifies the types of bills in Parliament, following the exact structure shown in the image. Types of bills. Bills are broadly classified into two categories based on who introduces them. Government bill. A bill introduced by a minister on behalf of the government. Private member's bill. A bill introduced by a member of Parliament who is not a minister. Bills are also classified according to their subject matter. Non-money bill. A bill that does not deal with taxation, government expenditure, borrowing, or other financial matters. Money bill. A bill that deals only with financial matters, such as taxation, government expenditure, borrowing, or the Consolidated Fund of India. Types of non-money bills. A non-money bill is further divided into ordinary bill. A bill dealing with ordinary legislative matters. Constitution Amendment Bill. A bill introduced to amend the provisions of the Constitution of India. Even before a bill is introduced in Parliament, there may be a lot of debate on the need for introducing such a bill. A political party may pressurize the government to initiate a bill in order to fulfill its election promises or to improve its chances of winning forthcoming elections. Interest groups, the media, and citizens' forums may also persuade the government to bring in a particular legislation. Lawmaking is thus not merely a legal procedure, but also a political course of action. The preparation of a bill itself involves many considerations, such as the resources required to implement the law, the support or opposition that the bill is likely to receive, and the impact that the law may have on the electoral prospects of the ruling party. In the era of coalition politics especially, a bill proposed by the government has to be acceptable to all the partners in the coalition. Such practical considerations can hardly be ignored. The cabinet considers all these before arriving at a decision to enact a law. Once the cabinet approves the policy behind the legislation, the task of drafting the legislation begins. The draft of any bill is prepared by the concerned ministry. For instance, a bill raising the marriageable age of girls from 18 to 21 years will be prepared by the Ministry of Law. The Ministry of Women and Child Development may also be involved in it. Within Parliament, a bill may be introduced in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha by a member of the House, though often a minister responsible for the subject introduces the bill. A money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Once passed there, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha. A large part of the discussion on bills takes place in the committees. The recommendations of the committee are then sent to the House. That is why committees are referred to as miniature legislatures. This is the second stage in the lawmaking process. In the third and final stage, the bill is voted upon. If a non-money bill is passed by one house, it is sent to the other house, where it goes through exactly the same procedure. As you know, a bill has to be passed by both houses for enactment. If there is disagreement between the two houses on the proposed bill, an attempt is made to resolve it through a joint session of Parliament. In the few instances when joint sessions of Parliament were called to resolve a deadlock, the decision has always gone in favor of the Lok Sabha. If it is a money bill, the Rajya Sabha can either approve the bill or suggest changes, but cannot reject it. If it takes no action within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have been passed. Amendments to the bills suggested by the Rajya Sabha may or may not be accepted by the Lok Sabha. The text in the cartoon reads, "Read a cartoon." Caption inside the cartoon. Okay, let's not argue. Let's settle the issue through consensus. You support the bill and it will oppose all. Question below the cartoon. Is this how they follow the rules of the game? The cartoon is by R.K. Laxman, published in the Times of India. Article 109. Special procedure in respect of money bills. 1. A money bill shall not be introduced in the Council of States, Rajya Sabha. When a bill is passed by both houses, it is sent to the President for assent. The assent of the President results in the enactment of the bill into a law. Check your progress. From the discussion of the lawmaking process, do you think that Parliament can devote enough time for thorough discussion of bills? If not, what remedies would you suggest to overcome this difficulty? How does the Parliament control the executive? In a parliamentary democracy, the executive is drawn from the party or a coalition of parties that has a majority in the Lok Sabha. It is not difficult for the executive to exercise unlimited and arbitrary powers with the support of the majority party. In such a situation, parliamentary democracy may slip into cabinet dictatorship, where the cabinet leads and the House merely follows. Only if the Parliament is active and vigilant can it keep a regular and effective check on the executive. There are many ways in which the Parliament can control the executive, but basic to them all is the power and freedom of the legislators, as the people's representatives, to work effectively and fearlessly. For instance, no action can be taken against a member for whatever the member may have said in the legislature. This is known as parliamentary privilege. The presiding officer of the legislature has the final power in deciding matters of breach of privilege. The main purpose of such privileges is to enable the members of the legislature to represent the people and exercise effective control over the executive. How does the Parliament exercise such control? What are the means available at its disposal? Is parliamentary control successful in curbing executive excesses? Instruments of parliamentary control. The legislature in a parliamentary system ensures executive accountability at various stages: policy making, implementation of law or policy, and during the post-implementation stage. The legislature does this through the use of a variety of devices. Deliberation and discussion. Approval or refusal of laws. Financial control. No confidence motion. Deliberation and discussion. During the lawmaking process, members of the legislature get an opportunity to deliberate on the policy direction of the executive and the ways in which policies are implemented. Apart from deliberating on bills, control may also be exercised during the general discussions in the House. The question hour, which is held every day during the sessions of Parliament, is when ministers have to respond to searching questions raised by the members. 0 hour, where members are free to raise any matter that they think is important, though the ministers are not bound to reply. Half-an-hour discussion on matters of public importance, adjournment motion, etc., are some instruments of exercising control. A boy says, "With so many sting operations, are MPs still free to speak anything anywhere?" Perhaps the question hour is the most effective method of keeping vigil on the executive and the administrative agencies of the government. Members of Parliament have shown great interest in question hour, and maximum attendance is recorded during this time. Most of the questions aim at eliciting information from the government on issues of public interest, such as price rise, availability of food grains, atrocities on weaker sections of society, riots, black marketing, etc. This gives the members an opportunity to criticize the government and represent the problems of their constituencies. The discussions during the question hour are so heated that it is not uncommon to see members raise their voices, walk to the well of the House, or walk out in protest to make their point. This results in considerable loss of legislative time. At the same time, we must remember that many of these actions are political techniques to gain concessions from the government and, in the process, force executive accountability. A girl says, "It must be difficult to be a minister. This is like giving an examination almost every day." Approval and ratification of laws. Parliamentary control is also exercised through its power of ratification. A bill can become a law only with the approval of Parliament. A government that has the support of a disciplined majority may not find it difficult to get the approval of the legislature. Such approvals, however, cannot be taken for granted. They are the products of intense bargaining and negotiations among the members of the ruling party or coalition of parties, and even between the government and the opposition. If the government has a majority in the Lok Sabha but not in the Rajya Sabha, as happened during the Janata Party rule in 1977 and the NDA rule in 2000, the government will be forced to make substantial concessions to gain the approval of both houses. Many bills, such as the Lokpal Bill, failed to be enacted, while the Prevention of Terrorism Bill, 2002, was rejected by the Rajya Sabha. Financial control. As mentioned earlier, financial resources to implement the programs of the government are granted through the budget. Preparation and presentation of the budget for the approval of the legislature is a constitutional obligation of the government. This obligation allows the legislature to exercise control over the purse strings of the government. The legislature may refuse to grant resources to the government. This seldom happens because the government ordinarily enjoys the support of the majority in the parliamentary system. Nevertheless, before granting money, the Lok Sabha can discuss the reasons for which the government requires money. It can inquire into cases of misuse of funds on the basis of the reports of the Comptroller and Auditor General and the Public Accounts Committee. But legislative control is not only aimed at financial propriety. The legislature is concerned about the policies of the government that are reflected in the budget. Through financial control, the legislature controls the policy of the government. No confidence motion. The most powerful weapon that enables Parliament to ensure executive accountability is the no confidence motion. As long as the government has the support of its party or coalition of parties that have a majority in the Lok Sabha, the power of the House to dismiss the government is more fictional than real. However, after 1989, several governments have been forced to resign due to the lack of confidence of the House. Each of these governments lost the confidence of the Lok Sabha because they failed to retain the support of their coalition partners. Thus, Parliament can effectively control the executive and ensure a more responsive government. It is, however, important for this purpose that there is adequate time at the disposal of the House. The members are interested in discussion and participate effectively, and there is willingness to compromise between the government and the opposition. In the last 2 decades, there has been a gradual decline in the number of sessions of the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, and in the time spent on debates. Moreover, the Houses of Parliament have been plagued by the absence of quorum and the boycott of sessions by members of the opposition, which deprive the House of the power to control the executive through discussion. Activity. Watch the Doordarshan telecast of Parliament sessions for 3 continuous days, or collect newspaper reports for 3 continuous days and make a wallpaper. Take care to observe. The issues being discussed. The role of the speaker. Questions being asked. The political parties of the representatives. Representatives from your region, and the nature of the issues under discussion, whether they were national or regional in character. What do the COMMITTES of Parliament do? A significant feature of the legislative process is the appointment of committees for various legislative purposes. These committees play a vital role not merely in lawmaking, but also in the day-to-day business of the House. Since Parliament meets only during sessions, it has very limited time at its disposal. The making of laws, for instance, requires an in-depth study of the issue under consideration. This, in turn, demands more attention and time. Similarly, there are other important functions, such as studying the demands for grants made by various ministries, looking into expenditure incurred by various departments, investigating cases of corruption, etc. Parliamentary committees perform such functions. Since 1983, India has developed a system of parliamentary standing committees. There are over 20 such department-related committees. Standing committees supervise the work of various departments, their budgets, their expenditure, and bills that come up in the House relating to the department. Read a cartoon. Speech bubble Hindi. Kai Sansid Bhavan Hain, Koi Shochlate Kahan Hai. Signboard Hindi. Sansid Kania Parasar. Boys Dialogue Hindi. Kash, Pichal Pachas Varshan Main Sansid School by Banve Hote. Caption below the cartoon. Walkout is a frequently adopted measure by the opposition to register their protest against the government. Has there been an overuse of that weapon? Apart from standing committees, the Joint Parliamentary Committees, JPCs, have occupied a position of eminence in our country. Joint parliamentary committees can be set up for the purpose of discussing a particular bill or for the purpose of investigating financial irregularities. Members of these committees are selected from both houses. The committee system has reduced the burden on Parliament. Many important bills have been referred to committees. Parliament has merely approved the work done by the committees with a few occasional alterations. Of course, legally speaking, no bill can become law, and no budget will be sanctioned unless approved by Parliament. But Parliament rarely rejects the suggestions made by the committees. The nature of the legislature is such that there are restrictions only so far as procedure is concerned. But in substance, there is no restriction, no limitation on the sovereignty of the legislature or Parliament. N.V. Gadgil, Cad. Vol. XI. P. 659, 18 November 1949. How does the Parliament regulate itself? Parliament, as mentioned earlier, is a debating forum. It is through debates that Parliament performs all its vital functions. Such discussions must be meaningful and orderly so that the functions of Parliament are carried out smoothly and its dignity is maintained. The Constitution itself has made certain provisions to ensure the smooth conduct of business. The presiding officer of the legislature is the final authority in matters relating to the regulation of the business of the legislature. A girl says, "So, the lawmakers, too, are subject to some laws." Read a cartoon. Speech bubble. Walkout nahe, outkir gay hain. Caption below the cartoon. "We are not walking out, we have been ordered out," said the MPs. "Why do you think such situations occur?" A boy says, "I don't understand why they change parties. Do they even come back to the party they once left?" There is one more way in which the presiding officers control the behavior of the members. You may have heard about the anti-defection law. Most of the members of the legislatures are elected on the ticket of some political party. What would happen if they decide to leave the party after getting elected? For many years after independence, this issue remained unresolved. Finally, there was an agreement among the parties that a legislator who is elected on one party's ticket must be restricted from defecting to another party. An amendment to the Constitution was made, the 52nd Amendment Act, in 1985. This is known as the Anti-Defection Amendment. It has also been subsequently modified by the 91st Amendment. The presiding officer of the House is the authority who takes the final decision in all such cases. If it is proved that a member has defected, then such a member loses the membership of the House. Besides, such a person is also disqualified from holding any political office, such as ministership, etc. What is defection? If a member remains absent in the House when asked by the party leadership to remain present, or votes against the instructions of the party, or voluntarily leaves the membership of the party, It is deemed to be defection. Experience of the past 20 years shows that the Anti-Defection Amendment has not been able to curb defections, but it has given additional powers to the party leadership and the presiding officers of the legislatures over the members. Conclusion. Have you watched the live telecast of the proceedings of Parliament? You will find that our Parliament is truly a rainbow of colorful dresses symbolizing different regions of the country. Members speak different languages during the proceedings. They come from various castes, religions, and sects. They often fight bitterly. Many times, an impression is created that they are wasting the time and money of the nation. But we have seen in this chapter that these same parliamentarians can effectively control the executive. They can express the interests of various sections of our society. On account of its composition, the legislature is the most representative of all organs of government. The sheer presence of members from diverse social backgrounds makes the legislature more representative and potentially more responsive to people's expectations. In a parliamentary democracy, the legislature, as a body representing the wishes of the people, occupies a high position of power and responsibility. Herein lies the democratic potential of Parliament. Exercises. 1. Alok thinks that a country needs an efficient government that looks after the welfare of the people. So, if we simply elected our prime minister and ministers and left the task of government to them, we would not need a legislature. Do you agree? Give reasons for your answer. 2. A class was debating the merits of a bicameral system. The following points were made during the discussion. Read the arguments and say whether you agree or disagree with each of them, giving reasons. Neha said that a bicameral legislature does not serve any purpose. Shama argued that experts should be nominated to the second chamber. Tridib said that if a country is not a federation, then there is no need to have a second chamber. 3. Why can the Lok Sabha control the executive more effectively than the Rajya Sabha can? 4. Rather than effective control of the executive, the Lok Sabha is a platform for the expression of popular sentiments and people's expectations. Do you agree? Give reasons. 5. The following are some proposals for making Parliament more effective. State whether you agree or disagree with each of them and give your reasons. Explain what would be the effect if these suggestions were accepted. Parliament should work for a longer period. Attendance should be made compulsory for members of Parliament. Speakers should be empowered to penalize members for interrupting the proceedings of the House. 6. Arif wanted to know that if ministers propose most of the important bills, and if the majority party often gets the government bills passed, what is the role of Parliament in the lawmaking process? What answer would you give him? 7. Which of the following statements do you agree with the most? Give your reasons. Legislators must be free to join any party they want. The anti-defection law has contributed to the domination of the party leaders over the legislators. Defection is always for selfish purposes, and therefore, a legislator who wants to join another party must be disqualified from being a minister for the next 2 years. 8. Dolly and Sudha are debating about the efficiency and effectiveness of Parliament in recent times. Dolly believes that the decline of the Indian Parliament is evident in the less time spent on debate and discussion, and the increase in disturbances in the functioning of the House and walkouts, etc. Sudha contends that the fall of different governments on the floor of the Lok Sabha is proof of its vibrancy. What other arguments can you provide to support or oppose the positions of Dolly and Sudha? 9. Arrange the different stages of passing of a bill into a law in their correct sequence. A resolution is passed to admit the bill for discussion. The bill is referred to the President of India. Write what happens next if she does not sign it. The bill is referred to the other house and is passed. The bill is passed in the house in which it was proposed. The bill is read clause by clause, and each clause is voted upon. The bill is referred to the subcommittee. The committee makes some changes and sends it back to the House for discussion. The concerned minister proposes the need for a bill. The legislative department in the Ministry of Law drafts a bill. 10. How has the system of parliamentary committees affected the overseeing and appraisal of legislation by Parliament.